Now in this one, we're looking at how to actually crop the image so that we have a nice square image here, and also for the cover image that we're going to need here. Now the smart thing to do would be to create one class that's going to crop images. All we have to do is specify the maximum width and the maximum height so that we can use the same class for the profile image and also for the cover image. Right, so to do that, let's go to our text editor and let me remove all these things that I don't need. I won't need the header. I won't need all these guys, and I'll leave this one. Let me just create a new file and let me save this one into the classes. And this class is going to be called image.php. So I'm going to save this one. So in here, we're going to create a class that actually crops an image. Now, we don't need to put the closing tag here because there will be no HTML in here. Now, the thing is, it's going to get rather quite complicated in here. So what I want you to do is simply, if you don't understand something, simply type along as I do. Eventually, it will make sense as you learn more about PHP. Okay. So let's create a class and call it image with a capital I, like that. Okay, so this is our image class, and in here we want to create a public function because we want to be able to access it from outside this class right here. So public function, we're going to call this one crop image. Very original name, like that. Okay, so crop image. Now what I want this to be as simple as possible when we are dealing with it. We're going to call this function right here. In here, after we move the uploaded file, we're going to want to crop it here. So what I want to be able to do is something like this. I want to be able to say crop, let me say new image, what do I do? Image class, because I've used image. I think I've used image if I'm not mistaken. Have I used this? I think I've used it down here. No, actually I haven't used this variable. So I'm simply going to say image is equal to new image, like that, because we're using the class. Now, as always, we have to add the class here. So I'm simply going to append to these guys and say image.php inside classes. Okay, otherwise we'll get an error. So once we have that, all I want to be able to do is to say image crop image, like this. And then what I want is to be able to tell it where I want, which image I want to crop. Okay, and then the destination image, and then the width and the height. So instead of writing it like this, I'm going to say original image, this is a cropped image, sorry, and then I need to be able to specify the width and the height. So I'm going to limit all images to 1000 by 1000 pixels. So this is all I want to be able to do, to simply create the class and then call the function that will crop, and then I'll give it my original image and then my cropped image where to save after cropping. If I give the same value here, it's going to replace the file, and then I give it the width that I want and the height. Now this is important because I want to be able to crop these that are not square as well to those specific dimensions. So to do this, let me copy this part that I've created here and go in here and paste it, and then I can come back here, and instead of, since I know the original image is this one, file name, so I'll put that one there, and I want it to be actually replaced because I don't want to keep that big file that the user has saved. So I'm going to put the same name on both places, and then I'll specify what to crop to, 1000 by 1000, or I can simply say 800 by 800. I think that's good enough. 800 by 800 pixels. So once I do this, and then we save the file name, and everything will be good. So let's go back to our class right here. So here I'm going to put dollar signs like that to specify the values that I need, and then these will be numbers. But instead of these numbers, I'm going to say max width and max height. So these are the values written by the user, by the programmer there. So this is all what I want to give it, and once I give it this, I want it to output an image that has been cropped. Now the function that actually crops an image is very simple. It's called image copy resampled, like that. This is the function. It's just one function that crops an image. Now the only issue here with this image is you have to give it all these variables in here. You have to give it the destination of the image, the source image, and then the destination X, where to start from, where to paste in the destination image, because what it's actually doing here, it's copying two images. It's copying one image and pasting it in another image. So while you copy an image from one file to the other, you can enlarge it or reduce it or cut part of it. So this is why we're using this function. It's not specifically meant to crop images. No. You can use this to manipulate images in any way. So we're going to use the same image to resize and crop. So all these parameters have to be added there. So we're going to create these variables before we actually call the function. Now we have to do two things in here also. We have to resize the image first, and then we can crop it. Now the reason for that is actually quite simple. If, for example, I get my image, I've got an image here with a width and height of what's the width and height? 3000 pixels by 5000 pixels. So this is a very highly detailed image. So if I decide to just crop this one 800 by 800 in the center, what will happen is it's going to crop a very small area like this of that image, which is not what we want exactly. We want it to be able to take into account everything on the width, for example. In this case, we have the height that's longer, but the width is smaller. So when we crop 800 by 800, we want it to cut this top and then cut this bottom and then shrink the image to 800 by 800 pixels. So this is why we must first resize the image to the pixels that we want. In this case, we make sure that the 1000 width is set to the width here so that we get all of the width, and then we crop out the top, extra top and extra bottom, and then we'll have a square image. So we are doing two things, resizing and then cropping. All right, so let's get into it right now, and we're going to begin by creating an image resource, because this destination image and source image are not file names, they're actually image resources, so we have to create them. So to start with, let's check a few things first of all. First, we have to know if the file actually exists. So let's say if file exists, that's the original image, right? Or instead of okay, that's the cropped image there. All right, so if file exists, we are sure that it exists because we don't want to create image resources for files that don't exist. What we do now, we assume this is a JPEG. So what we do is we say instead of original image here, I'm going to say original file name. Okay, cropped file name, so that I can differentiate between file names and image resources. So here I'm going to capture this file name and put it here. Okay, now I'm going to create an image resource for the original file. For the original, I'll call it original image. This is an image resource. Now the difference between an image resource and the actual file name is that with the image resource, we are putting the image inside our computer's memory so that we can access each pixel from there. So we are making it ready for manipulation. So we're going to use the function called image create. There's image create from JPEG because we're assuming this is a JPEG. Now if you're using PNG, you use image create from PNG, or you can say image create from GIF. So we are using JPEG, so we will do that. So this is the original file name. So let's put it there. So now an image resource has been created using our file name. Okay, so once we do that, we are good to go. Now let's calculate what is the original width of the image and the original height. So original width is equal to, there's a function called image sx. So that one gets the it gets the width of the image resource that we've created. So this is the image resource. So we are getting the original width of this resource. It's better to get it from the image resource because it's more precise. So original image, and then same original height. Here we change this to SY. So now we have the original width and the original height. Okay, good to go. So from there, once we know those two, now we can do some calculations on what is the reduction ratio that we want to do. How much should we reduce our actual image by? So we're going to use an if clause here. I'm going to say if the original height, so if the original height is greater than the original original width, so if the height is greater, like in that image I'd shown you, we use different calculations as to when the width is greater. So let's put an else here for when the width is greater.